I talk about the lone wolf a lot. Now, why do I talk about this? Well, for one reason, it's what's gotten me the most views on YouTube so far. And it seems to speak to a lot of people. For some people, I'm the first person they've heard talking about something like this, something that they've known about for a long time, but never heard someone else say the thoughts that they have in their mind. If you haven't heard me talk about the lone wolf before, it seems like I may have a very different take on what you might think it is. The lone wolf I speak about is operating from a survival response, but it turns out to be what is their innate way of operating. They are the kindest, compassionate, caring individuals who have likely felt the most left out, uncared for, neglected, betrayed, and misunderstood. One of my latest videos talking about how the lone wolf is the future of human evolution and how neurodivergent people are the future of human evolution. Our brains are changing. Our brains are rewiring as they're supposed to. Our brains are starting to perceive the world around us different than ever before. Most people have a misconception that to be a lone wolf is a bad thing. Even to be neurodivergent is a bad thing because you're not normal. But the truth is that different is the new normal. More and more people are starting to discover that to have a preference for being alone is not a bad thing. And something is not deeply wrong with you if you have this preference. There's nothing to feel ashamed about. And the loneliness is not from the being alone, it's from not being understood. Imagine you were someone who spent a lot of time alone and it was normal, and you never grew up being shamed for that. Then being alone would not be attributed to something negative. You would not associate loneliness with being alone. When you weren't behaving yourself as a kid, you'd get sent to your room. Being alone was punishment. We have this ingrained in our DNA. So we have to start to change this way of thinking, this perception, especially for people who gain great insight and peace and solitude from being alone. It needs to be normalized. Just like how during the pandemic, social isolation was not so hard for certain people. And it was actually a blessing for them. They relished in those social isolation periods. It was like a dream come true for them. Whereas other people suffered a lot. If I was sent to my room as a kid, there was always plenty for me to do in there. Wasn't such a bad thing. I didn't have any fear of missing out. But a lot of people do. A lot of people are spending time alone thinking they're missing out on something. You're not. It's the people who are spending so much time with others who are missing out on what being alone has to offer. So for many people, hearing me talk about this is very validating. It's comforting to know that nothing is actually wrong with you. And how can you turn the lone wolf lifestyle into a lifestyle of happiness, peace, and empowerment? Some people ask about having relationships and getting their intimate needs met. And for people asking that question, I would tell them that they can still be a lone wolf and have all of their needs met. However, their needs might take a different shape and be met in a different way than the mainstream. Everyone's going to have their own way of taking care of their own needs for connection. And for many people, the connection they have with plants, nature, animals, art, music is enough. It can even be enough to indirectly interact with your community or have one or two people in your life that help you stay grounded. And it's this grounding energy that the lone wolf needs to cultivate. What being a lone wolf is a mentality. It's your ability to have the mental clarity and the mental focus to carve your own path. And as a lone wolf, you naturally, you instinctually have this need to forge your own path. But many will ignore it and forget about it, which will make them very unsatisfied and lonely. So if you're unsatisfied and lonely in life, that's another reason to go the lone wolf path, to embrace that mentality because it's who you are. And you're just denying yourself by not following it. Just start to tell yourself, I am a lone wolf. I am carving my own path. No one needs to know. No one needs to understand. No one needs to approve. You just do it. What other people think about your path doesn't matter. And you're not harming anyone by taking this path. Don't let anyone fool you to think that the path you are taking is harming others. Unless it actually is, but a true lone wolf is not here to harm others. They are here to contribute to the overall humanity and collective well-being on this planet. The path you're taking is advantageous to everyone because you're fulfilling your own path while you respect the path that others are taking. As much as it begins as a form of survival, it must become a mindful practice, one that has a win-win outcome. You're not out for yourself. You're here for all of humanity. Because to be a lone wolf means you know what it means to be rejected and pushed to the side. So you understand that to do that to others isn't helpful, whereby you respect everyone's journey, even if someone is judging yours. That's okay. Not everyone's journey is to be understood, but it's your responsibility to understand your own, which might not look like everyone else's. Actually, it won't. Don't expect it to. As a lone wolf, you've become someone who is highly intuitive. You are extremely compassionate. You may even be regarded as a beacon of light. You are not someone who celebrates the downfalls of others, but you are surrounded by people who will likely celebrate yours. Because we must understand that there are many people out there who are narrow-minded, who are ignorant to differences, who disrespect differences, and who lack compassion. They don't even know what compassion means. They think that compassion is a weakness. They think that to be different is a weakness. They think you are a weakness. They see a lone wolf as a weak person. You internalize being a lone wolf as a weakness. But you have to get rid of that to really embody the lone wolf journey. You cannot go at it thinking that you are weak. If you do, then for sure you will fail. But that doesn't mean you have to become a leader to be strong. Nor do you need anyone following you to be strong. You allow others to be just as they are, and that is your strength. Everyone is just out there trying to find their own way. But as a lone wolf, you are committed to finding your own way by doing it your own way. The lone wolf is carving their own path. And that's the greatest challenge for the lone wolf because you do everything differently. You don't agree with what everyone says, and you don't have to. The greatest challenge for you isn't the fact that you're carving your own path. It's that you're not following the cookie cutter paths that have been carved out for you and everyone else. And it's likely that you tried those ones already. And if you did, well, how did that go? It might have brought you success. It might have brought you some happiness. But were you fulfilling your purpose? Was there still something missing? And whose purpose were you really fulfilling? Were you serving a purpose for a group that did not respect human differences and diversity? Because the lone wolf is about building a life that is whole and complete. And they don't need other people to do that for them. This is why the lone wolf is so misunderstood. They might be labeled as avoidant, insecure, troubled, depressed, even narcissistic. You will be gaslighted as a lone wolf that what you are doing is wrong, that you are somebody who is flawed, who is selfish, but you are just following your own path. You are living for you, which is not something that everyone can do. Not everyone is brave enough to stand outside of the box, to stand outside of the crowd and be different. Not everyone has that courage. I recently watched a documentary on Marilyn Monroe, and as out there in the limelight that she was, on stage, singing and dancing and acting, it would seem like she was someone who was very connected and social. However, she was very much a lone wolf. She always felt like an outsider. She was also adopted. She lived in numerous foster homes before getting her Hollywood break. She didn't have a lot of friends, just men mostly. She had a psychologist whose family spent a lot of time with her, like they were her family. She had experienced a lot of rejection. Even up until the day of her death, she continued to face rejection. She has said that she doesn't like people and liked even fewer people as friends. But she wanted a baby more than she wanted fame. And she did go through at least one miscarriage, which, as you can imagine, left her feeling even more rejected. Such a beautiful, successful woman. Why would she be so rejecting of herself? Her path was misunderstood. She was a perfectionist. She was always seeking ways to be more and more successful. But the stage wasn't where she experienced the rejection. It was in her relationships, including the one with herself. If she had known she was a lone wolf, she would have left the pursuit of men and therapy and sought after a quiet, peaceful life that wasn't so jarring on her nervous system. She would have worked on her self-acceptance, gotten out of the big city, and spent more time in nature. Who knows what other creative interests or abilities she had up her sleeve? That we will never know. For the lone wolves who don't know their journey, who don't know their truth, they'll either die young or die at the hand of someone else. The time you spend with yourself is what makes all the difference. If you're someone who spends a lot of time with other people, you're subject to taking on the energy of other people. You are at risk of assimilating the values, beliefs, behaviors of other people. And to be honest, this is what happens from the day we're born. So we're never really truly sure who we actually are. We just know who we are to other people. We know who we are in comparison to other people. But who are we just on our own, just by ourselves? So by going into your own lone wolf energy, you find yourself. And to find yourself means you connect with yourself. You connect with your own truth, your own voice, your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own passions, separate and aside from what you've been conditioned to think and feel. For many people, that's a scary thing to do. Most people can't stand to be alone, and so they'll only ever know who they are based on who they are in comparison to someone else. You have this innate preference towards being a lone wolf, but do you have the skills required to make the most of this preference? The tools and the skills that are needed to fulfill your preference to be a lone wolf are as follows. 1, self-compassion. Now, it seems whenever I say this word, people don't know what it means. And if this word is unfamiliar to you, then it's likely this is a skill you will have to learn in order to be a happy lone wolf. If you pity yourself, criticize, and shame yourself, those things that you're doing will keep you a very lonely lone wolf. So number 1, learn self-compassion. Number 2, creativity and hobbies. You need to have the skill of being able to either learn something new or revisit something you once loved from your past. So much time alone will be long and painful if you don't have any variety to offer yourself. You need these tools to help you define and redefine who you are. And 3, social adaptability. This one might seem counterintuitive, but as a lone wolf, it doesn't mean you're avoiding people or society. It's quite the opposite. As a lone wolf, you have to have the skill to be your own person amongst the masses. That is what a true lone wolf actually is. It doesn't mean you separate yourself from society. You learn how to stand out from society. You learn how to have your own voice within the noise. You learn how to hold your own presence within the clutter of toxic energy. Those are just three skills that you need to have in order to embody this lone wolf mentality successfully. And I know you want to. So that's self-compassion, creativity, and social adaptability. If you can nail those three things, you'll be on your way.